My speech will be about stars. This is my audience with my dad manning the camera. When massive stars died, their fiery explosions created elements that are fundamental to life, such as oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen. These stars are the very reason that there's life on Earth and that there's a universe to exist in, because they created these elements. Stars are very powerful celestial bodies. They live long lives producing light and energy before they finally die, and there are a few outcomes. I'll be going over how stars are created, how they produce light and energy, and how they die. Stars are created in molecular or interstellar clouds. These clouds are made up of many different types of gases, dust, and ice. How they're created is when a particularly dense part of the cloud gets compressed by gravity, and it becomes a small, dense, hot core, which is the beginning of the star. It is an estimated that 150 billion stars are born a year. That's 4,800 stars a second. When stars are created, they have to go through a certain process to produce light and energy. This process is called nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion is when atoms go through intense pressures and heat and get compressed into a different atom. So the main fuel for most stars and our own sun is compressing hydrogen to helium. Different stars are classified by their spectra and temperature, and they have different types of elements that they use for their nuclear fusion. The different classes being O, B, F, G, K, and M. O is the biggest, hottest, and brightest kind of star, and M being the opposite. Our sun ranks at a G star, which is about in the middle. Heavier elements up to iron are what the bigger stars would use as fuel. Eventually, these stars will run out of all possible options for fuel, and they will die. There are many possibilities that depends on what type of star we're talking about. It starts out all the same. Every star will run out of fuel and will expand, usually. The fate of our sun is a planetary nebula, which is when the star will shed its outer layers and form a ring almost around its core, which the core will then be called a white dwarf. And they don't do much, they're just kind of there. And another fate is a supernova. This requires massive stars or supermassive stars. It's when a star collapses in on itself and then explodes. So you can tell the difference between both of these, that this looks a lot more relaxed and the layers got shedded off, but this just exploded in all different directions. There is a remnant of the original star, which is called a neutron star, which is way hotter and denser than a white dwarf, but you can't see it in this picture. The final and most mysterious outcome for most stars, this is only for supermassive stars, is a black hole. You can't really see them because it's when like a star collapses in on itself and forms a very strong and dense vortex of gravity, so nothing can escape it, not even light. The only way we can get pictures of them is when you look at the very outside and you'll see light going in, and then you just don't see it anymore. No one knows where anything goes when it gets pulled into a black hole, and they are one of the most mysterious objects in space. So I went over how stars are created, how they produce light and energy, and how they die. When many people look up at the night sky and they see all the stars, they feel small because the universe is so big. But you shouldn't feel small, because these stars created the elements that you are a part of, and that everything around you is a part of. So don't feel small, feel big. You're a part of the universe, and it's a part of you. Thanks for listening.